Cranberries are one of just a handful of fruits that are native to North America. Before the Europeans arrived, the Indians used them for food and medicine. The cranberry vine is well suited to a harsher climate. It thrives in low temperatures and loves acidic soil that's scarce in nutrients. Cranberries are ripe for the picking in late September. At harvest time, farmers flood their fields to make the cranberries float to the surface. Then they use a machine called a beater. It generates underwater turbulence, pulling the berries off the vines. The beater is suspended from a mobile bridge that's computer-guided to systematically work its way through the entire field. The beater cuts a swath about 23 feet wide with each sweep. Workers move the floating cranberries to one corner of the field where a pump transfers them to a waiting truck. Along the way, the berries get a preliminary rinsing to remove branches and leaves. At the factory, the truck unloads its cargo. The cranberries travel along a water canal and onto a conveyor belt, then through a cleaning station where workers use brushes and water jets to get rid of any remaining leaves and branches. Then they dump the cranberries into large bins to be frozen for up to several months. To produce cranberry juice, they defrost the frozen berries in hot water, then mash them, skins, seeds and all, into a puree. They add special enzymes to break up the pectin molecules, making the puree less viscous and therefore easier to press. The press processes almost 9 tons of puree at a time. That's the weight of 1.5 elephants. It takes 3 to 4 pressing cycles to extract all the juice. The juice then goes through a sophisticated filtration system. The 216 filters remove any plant particles or bacteria larger than 1 micron. A micron is about 25,000 times smaller than an inch. Then they evaporate the water until the juice is 10 times more concentrated. Cranberries not destined for juice go through a grading process. The undersized berries drop down through the holes of a giant sifter, while the bigger cranberries move on to the grading table, where workers remove any that are substandard. An electronic sorter then scans the remaining cranberries for color, signaling an air gun to blow any reject berries off the production line. The rest move on to the packaging department or continue down the line to be dried. Cranberries destined for drying are automatically seeded, cut in half and pressed, then soaked in a sugar and water solution to make them sweeter. The side-to-side motion of the conveyor belt spreads the berries thinly so that they'll dry evenly. The hot air dryer subjects them to temperatures varying from 86 to 176 degrees Fahrenheit. After about 3 hours, the cranberries come out looking like this. As you sip your cranberry tea, ponder this. Cranberries are a source of potassium and vitamins A and C, and drinking cranberry juice can prevent and treat urinary tract infections. Muffin. The word muffin appeared in Britain around the 11th century. In Victorian times, muffins were bought in the street from the Muffin Man, made famous in the popular children's nursery rhyme. In America, cooks began to experiment with English muffin recipes, and the modern muffin was born. These muffins are a lot like homemade, except to make this many, you need some pretty big equipment and a heap of ingredients. At this commercial bakery, they make them with flour, then add salt, baking powder, and a prepared mixture of dry ingredients. Finally, they add vanilla flavor and start up the barrel mixer. It's a big one, large enough to hold a ton of batter at least. Next, they add oil and water, then vegetable shortening. Now, here come the blueberries. They go into the mix once they're thawed. Berries are delicate, so workers take care to pour them out slowly, weighing each bucket to add just the right amount. Down below, workers pour out close to a ton of batter from the mixer. That's a whole lot of batter. Just one batch makes about 7,000 muffins. They cover the trough to protect the batter until it goes on to fill baking pans like these that can hold 54 muffins each with its own paper liner. A conveyor advances the pans towards a machine called a batter depositor. Prepared batter is in from the trough and into the pans as they pass below it. The depositor fills the pans one row at a time, measuring out the batter by weight. At the next station, blueberries pass through a funnel equipped with a turning gear and drop right onto the muffin tops. A bar placed across the conveyor blows filtered air to remove any stray berries from the pans as they advance to the gas oven. A metal arm pushes them right into bake. For about 30 minutes, the oven, open on both sides, has dampers to keep in the heat. The muffins come out of the oven baked to golden brown. The pans cool for a few minutes and then continue on to a custom design machine. That's pretty handy. It removes the muffins from the pan and packages them all automatically. Suction cups seize cardboard flats 2 at a time and push them onto a tray former. The forming head pushes down on the pre-glued cardboard and voila, out comes a perfectly square box that falls right onto the conveyor belt. Pans full of baked muffins follow alongside on another conveyor. At the next stop, suction cups lift the muffins out of their pans with military precision. They set them down into neat rows in the cardboard boxes that wait on the back conveyor. The conveyor carries the filled boxes to a station where they're covered top and bottom with a sheet of clear plastic. Heated blades cut and seal the plastic at both ends. Then the boxes pass through a heat tunnel that shrinks the plastic snugly over the trays. They're now ready for shipping to customers in the food service industry. On another line, pre-printed plastic film wraps the individual muffins as they flow along a conveyor. Rotating brushes keep them moving forward while blades come down to separate the continuous roll into individually wrapped muffins, ready for retail sale. Blueberry, bran, strudel, lemon poppy, with so many flavors to choose from, why not try some of each? Blueberries are honestly one of nature's healthiest foods. They're low in calories, packed with vitamin C, and just full of antioxidants. And, freezing blueberries doesn't compromise any of that nutritional value. North and South America actually grow most of the world's blueberries. The length of the harvest varies by climate. So in the south, it spans from April to September, while further north, it's mid-June to mid-August. At this state-of-the-art blueberry farm, a mechanical harvester straddles the row of blueberry plants and shakes the leaves with vibrating fingers. The berries fall to a sloped floor below and roll down into side conveyor belts. The belts dump the berries into onboard bins, which trucks transport from the field to the on-site packing plant. Workers empty the bins into a hopper which feeds the berries onto a conveyor belt. A vibrating conveyor belt then flies the berries under a blower that suctions up loose leaves and twigs. Then the blueberries tumble down a waterfall, stones and debris settle in the ledges. The berries land in a wash tank. Most of the ripe ones sink to the bottom, while most of the unripe ones float on top, where workers can easily scoop them out. The berries exit the wash tank with fewer unripe ones among them. The mesh belt vibrates to gently shake off water. Then it runs the berries through the first of 2 color sorters. The machine's camera is preset to ignore the color blue and detect only green and red. Whenever a green or red berry passes, the camera sends a signal to the computer, identifying its exact location, so that one of the 136 air jets blows it off the belt to a collection trough below. The ripe blueberries fly over the top onto a conveyor belt that takes them to the freezer tunnel. The temperature inside is minus 29 degrees Fahrenheit. 5 to 7 minutes later, the berries exit the tunnel frozen solid. Workers perform a final visual inspection. After passing through a metal detector, the berries drop into a pre-programmed scale that weighs out the specific quantity being packaged. Meanwhile, in an on-site lab, government-trained inspectors pull samples off the line every 20 minutes for grading, which they determine by assessing factors such as color, aroma, and defects. The frozen berries go into a freezer until shipped out by freezer truck. The fresh berry production line is similar to the frozen line, minus the wash tank and, of course, the freeze tunnel. However, the color sorters on this line are even more high-tech. Not only are they set to detect red and green berries, but they also have a firmness detector, which by bouncing each berry on a pad can identify blue ones too soft to have at least a 12-day refrigerated shelf life. Air jets blow those soft berries off the conveyor so they can be transferred to the frozen berry line. The rest continue to a final visual inspection. The fresh berries are ready for packaging. This electronic fill machine is preset to weigh out the specific quantity. They're packaging, in this case, nearly 2-pound containers. It drops that quantity of berries into an awaiting plastic container. The final stop on the packaging line is the flat seal machine. It applies a printed plastic film to the top of the container, melting and bonding it to the perimeter without a touch of heat. So, the film has ventilation holes because, well, fresh berries require air. From here, the containers go off to a refrigerated warehouse to await shipping to the store by refrigerated truck. And, provided they remain refrigerated, the blueberries remain fresh and juicy for about 10 to 12 days. Berry baskets. Long before the development of pottery, people looked to the forest for containment materials. They made berry baskets from the bark of birch trees. The baskets were lightweight and waterproof due to natural resins in the bark. The making of these baskets is a tradition that carries on. For containing nature's bounty, birch bark is a natural choice. This berry basket is made entirely from materials found in nature. Making one starts with birch bark that's been carefully pried off the tree to avoid damage to the inner layer of bark. This cardboard pattern will be used as a template. The basket maker examines the bark for any holes or serious flaws. He flips the bark over. He'll use the inner side for the outside of the basket. He traces around the pattern using a scribe that lightly scores the bark. This light scoring creates a visible outline on the bark. So, using scissors for cutting leather, he follows the pattern lines to cut the bark to the pattern shape. The contours, though, are harder to follow, so he switches to scissors with curved blades to cut them out. Next, he punches holes in the basket corners. This will stop the bark from splitting in these spots when it's folded. Using a pointed instrument known as a divider, he now etches stitch lines around the perimeter. He maps out the location for the stitch holes by lightly piercing the bark along the etched lines. Using a ruler for support, he bends the flaps of the pattern up, creating creases that will become permanent folds later. He then punches out stitch holes where he had lightly pierced the bark. He drapes a damp towel over the birch bark and irons it. This softens the bark so that it doesn't split as he now forms the final bends along the crease lines. He overlaps the ends of the basket, then he clips the structure to hold it together, while he inserts wooden dowels in some of the stitch holes. Once the dowels are in, he removes the clips. The dowels will keep the basket together for stitching. But first, he tapers the stem from a willow shrub using a wood plane. He inserts the stem in a cylindrical container and fills the cylinder with hot water. The tapered stem soaks overnight. It softens and becomes extremely flexible. Using a wooden form, he shapes the stem into a ring, making sure the tapered ends overlap for a consistent thickness all the way around. He clips the ring to the inner rim of the basket and also tacks it in place with a few stitches. This willow ring will add support to the lip of the berry basket. Next, he stitches the seams together using the root of a spruce tree for thread. Its tapered tip serves as a needle. He does precise back stitches and ensures all the seams are tight. Moving back to the rim of the basket, he punctures the bark just below the willow ring, creating a row of holes to loop the root around the rim. This spruce root wrap protects the rim ring and gives the basket a more finished look at the top. He slices a piece of cedar bark into long, narrow strips. He'll use these strips to make a handle for the basket. He weaves the cedar into a 5-strand braid. He loops the cedar braid at the ends and uses the loops to stitch the handle to the berry basket. It takes this artisan about a day to craft a birch bark berry basket. His efforts will no doubt bear fruit for many years to come.